Welcome to another show. My name is Jesse Malin, and I help you make your best relationship. Today, I wanted to share with you how freedom from suppression has actually brought my family closer together. My boy, his name is Elisha. Elisha was at it again. He was making faces, just kind of being mean, going making noises like that to his mother, my wife JC, because he was mad at her, because he didn't want to do something that she was making him do. So what did I do? I said, Elisha, go put your nose on the wall. 5 minutes, right? He's a 5-year-old, 5 minutes. And if he acts worse, then I give him a spanking, send him off to bed. He's not allowed to come out of his room until I say so. But I've been noticing something over time. He's 5 years old. And he is listening less and less to what I want him to listen to me and do what I say, right? He's listening less and not doing what I want to say the first time. That's what I'd always say. Why don't you listen the first time instead of getting in trouble? That's something I developed into saying that out of a habit, my own habit. But I noticed the more I squeeze tight on trying to control my son, the more he slips through my fingers. And that's how it is, especially when it comes to suppression. We've talked about shadow work, our own shadow, in the last 2 episodes, and how these aspects of ourselves need acknowledgement, need healing, need love, and that is how we improve our life, our personal relationship with ourselves, so that we can go out and make more fulfilling, meaningful relationships with others, and especially with our spouse. The same is true with our kids. JC and I were tucking in the boys to go to bed. We have 2 sons. And she was having a hard time getting Link, he's our 1-year-old, having a hard time getting him to go to bed. And then it was time for Elisha to go to bed. And he was upset, already mad. But I told him, go in there, go to bed. You're done for the night. Go to bed. In my own anger, I said that. And so he goes in frustrated, and he's whining and just being angry. And JC's trying to get him to change his pajamas, and it's dark in the room because she's trying to get Link to go to sleep, and they're sharing a bedroom. And so what does he do? He throws a tantrum. He starts screaming and yelling. And then I hear JC starting getting angry and lifting her voice as well, getting mad at Elisha because he's not listening. I hear all of this. I get all reactive, right? I'm reactive. So I jump in there. And what do? I pounce all over Elisha. Pick him up. I spank him. I toss him into bed. And I tell him how horrible he is for what he's doing. I tell him how angry I am at him. And I make sure he knows that I am angry and that I think very little of him. He hushes up. I go out of the room. And of course we had a movie on, so I decided to finish watching that. But I could kind of feel that there was some uneasiness with my wife in what I had done. My wife comes out after both boys go to bed. She'd been in there for maybe 45 minutes longer, long time. She comes out and she sits next to me, and I can tell that something's wrong with her. I'm almost 100% sure it's what I had just done in the bedroom with our boy. So I ask her, I said, what's wrong? What's bothering you? And she's almost in tears. And she looks up at me and she says, Elisha's not happy. He's not happy. Bedtime, let me just throw this in there. Bedtime is one of the most important times of the day to reprogram your subconscious mind, to change out the old habits that aren't serving you, the limiting beliefs that are holding you back from keeping you from where you want to go or keeping you from getting what you want to get. Right before bed, you start dropping through the different stages of the brainwave states from beta to alpha, theta down into delta, hopefully. Right? But as you're dropping out of beta to alpha and hopefully into theta there, that's a great time to reprogram yourself. But Elisha's going to bed every night because he's got a struggle going to bed. he doesn't want to go to bed when it's bedtime. He goes to bed unhappy every night. And she brings this to me. She says he goes to bed unhappy every night. And we know that's not good for him. We know that's training him to develop a negative lens or perception, right, on life. And we're seeing this. We're seeing this day after day. He's starting to get just a little bit more unhappy, a little bit more of a power struggle between mom and dad and him. And we're noticing that more and more. But then she said something that really hit me. She said something and it cut me to the core. She said, this is what Elisha said when you left. She said, I'd never seen him like this, but he just seemed like all hope had been taken from him. All power had been taken from him. She said, this is what he said. Dad beat me, Mom. He really beat me. And that was it. And that crushed me. I knew what I had done was not right. I knew what I had done was done out of my own need for control, out of my own habits that I had developed through my own suppression from my parents. And my parents did a good job, so I'm not blaming them. I'm just saying that I had been suppressed as a child with the societal teachings of what they had been brought up with. And that I was doing the exact same thing to Elisha. The only difference was I was adding anger that I had pent up and stored and had taken it out on him unjustly. So that cut me to the core, cut me to the real core. And I felt like the worst father that any child could ever have. And that's when I wanted to make a change, but I didn't know how to make a change. Not until I started developing and working on my own shadow. You see, as I started working on my own shadow and started to notice these parts or these aspects of me that had been suppressed or had been talked about and shamed about, I was never allowed to throw a tantrum, of course. So, crying was kind of a wussy thing to do. I've shared before in posts and blogs and in some podcasts and videos how, masturbation and touching learning myself sexually was kind of shunned and shamed. And that developed downward spiral of addictive living. Because I was shamed, I felt that I was bad for doing something that happens naturally. And because I was bad, then why does it matter? Try and just give into it again. Just kind of created that downward spiral of addiction, right? And it wasn't until I learned, in this case, like the power of sexual transmutation, which I'll get into in some later videos. It wasn't until I learned, instead of like being shamed, instead of being like, hey, you're a sinner, you're a bad person because you're doing this thing. And I'm not saying my dad was saying I'm a bad person, but that's kind of the message portrayed, like how shameful it is to do this, right? And that's just the teachings that he had been taught with and accepted, right? So instead of being shamed, I learned some powerful principles that ended up benefiting me. Some powerful principles that changed my life. For instance, saving that creative energy and utilizing it in building my dream, in building my business. And that has driven my focus, that has given me extra energy to do the tasks that I've needed to do. There's a lot of power in it. And again, we'll go into that later. But discovering these shadow aspects of myself, learning correct principles, acknowledging them, and healing them, getting in touch with my emotions, learning to say no and build those boundaries up that we've talked about in previous videos, those really helped me to heal the shadow aspects of myself. But they have also helped me become more aware. They have also helped me raise my conscious awareness, which is powerful. Because of that, I've been able to see more. Not only just opportunities that have been in my life like all along, but also to see what I have been doing to Elisha to suppress him, what I have been doing to Elisha to create a shadow aspect in him on certain things. I noticed that I never took the time to play with him, do what he wanted to do, because I didn't know it, but I got addicted to doing this work. I got addicted to writing blog posts, and a lot of them I've even thrown out, so they're not even all on the website, which we're going to be posting here on Wednesday, which this movie should be coming out Thursday, so it should be available by the time this movie's out. You can go check out the blog post, you can go check out the website that we're building and working on. But I got addicted to doing that, and some of the addiction was enjoyment, some of the addiction was stress because I wanted to have all this stuff done. But I got addicted. I didn't realize that. And so instead of creating the life that I want and living in it now, I put it off as something, I put it on a pedestal. That's not normal. I can't have that. So why try bothering, right? And I've had to learn, first I had the addiction of wanting to work and stressing. Those are addictions. Stressing is an addiction, right? I had to learn that. And then I had to learn that, no, I can have this now. I can take my bow and Elisha's bow. We can go out and shoot bows. Or we can play Tickle Monster when he wants to play Tickle Monster. Or we can play Legos when he wants to play Legos. He loves Legos. And so did I, naturally, right? He's grown up to be exactly me. Almost exactly. In a lot of aspects. He's got a lot of good aspects from his mother as well. But he's growing up to be just like me. And a lot of those things that I was seeing suppressed in myself, I was transferring that energy into him. And here's the thing. Because I had allowed myself growing up, I didn't know any of the shadow work. I didn't know about the relationship with myself, with energy and vibration and emotions and how they all correlate and tie into the psyche and in perception and understanding. I didn't understand all of that stuff like I'm trying to share little bites here and there in this YouTube series. And because I didn't understand that, and because I felt shamed, because I felt guilty and bad, the negative lower emotions and vibrations, I allowed myself to believe that I was not worthy. I felt very unconfident in life. Besides feeling unworthy and unconfident, I became a people pleaser because I wanted love. I didn't feel like I had love. I didn't feel like, in certain aspects, I knew my parents loved me, but my dad was busy too, and he was always working and didn't really take time for me. And again, I'm not blaming him. I think him and my mom did a phenomenal job raising me. I wouldn't change it. Because the way they've raised me, they've helped me be open to ideas. They've helped me to learn things that I've learned and know now, and have provided the environment. Sometimes it wasn't fun or enjoyable. It was stressful, but that provided an environment for me to seek out something better. And so I appreciate them for that. But nevertheless, I grew up unconfident, feeling unworthy, and that affected my relationships when I was dating and in my early marriage. That affected my work life. I didn't believe I can get those higher paid positions. I didn't believe I could go for those higher, more fulfilling job type things. And so I always took the grunt work. I always took the dirty work and just started out at the base and never really moved up. Never did. And people walked all over me. A lot of times, I would work myself to death, like overtime, all the time. In the last 10 years, I've worked so much overtime, I should be retired. Okay, not really retired, but almost double time. Like 60, 70 hours was the norm type deal. And yeah, that's not as bad as some people, right? But I was always doing hard labor jobs that wreaked havoc on my body and really upset me in my mind. I became unhappy. And because I was so unhappy, I started to involve myself in more addiction. And because I was involving myself in more addiction, well, first off, I was involving myself in addiction because I could get some little spurts of enjoyment. Not necessarily joy, but enjoyment. Like I liked it. It gave me a little spark of energy or excitement out of the norm. But in the long run, any of those addictions ended up being detrimental to me, holding me back, keeping me stuck, keeping my focus distracted so I'd spread myself out and not go anywhere in life. And I did all that because I felt unworthy, because I was unconfident about myself, and I became a people pleaser. I was worried about what other people thought of me all the time. which has been a big leading factor in my life and a huge disconnect with my core self, with who I really am, right? It's been a huge disconnect. I've taken all of this energy, this understanding, and you know what I did? I compressed it all into Elisha, just suppressed him. When he'd get angry, I'd tell him he couldn't show his anger. He couldn't express a tantrum like, you stop being angry right now. You quit it and you go to your room, or you're going to get a spanking, threats this, threats that, right? That's exactly what I did to Elisha. When he was crying, quit crying. Don't cry. That's what wusses do. That's what sissies do, right? Like, you're not allowed to cry. You gotta buck up and just take it. Be a man, you know, because he's a boy. Just do what I say. Never let him do that. Going to bed. Like, you have to go to bed. You have to do what I say because I'm the boss. Like, you're going to do what I say. You know, and he'd always have a hard time doing things like that. And so, JC, back to when she was talking to me, JC, you know, Elisha never goes to bed happy. That was like the number one thing she wanted, was our children to be happy. She wanted that. The thing that I wanted Elisha to tell me, I know my love language, my first love language is words of affirmation. That goes kind of back to the people pleaser mentality. I want people to recognize me, right, and acknowledge me and tell me. And so I want him to tell me he loves me, right? And I want him to do it without me prompting him to do it. You know, sometimes I'd say, he'd go off to bed and I'd say, I love you. And he would look at me. Sometimes he wouldn't look at me, but he'd just nod his head. And I'd say, I love you, trying to prompt him to tell me he loves me back, right? And there's no real love in that if he's feeling forced to tell me he loves me. And so a lot of nights, he wouldn't tell me. Most nights, almost every night, he wouldn't tell me he loved me. And that ate at me. And I kind of had an idea why, but I didn't know what else to do. It's like, I'm just doing what I was taught. And, I've seen spankings and discipline. Like, we were raised good boys here because that's all we have. 3 for 3 on boys. We raise good boys. That's my goal in life, right? I want them to be raised to be proper, to be contributing to society, and to be happy. But I'm not getting any of those. And she wants our boys to just be happy. So we didn't know what to do. But we were determined to do something to help Elisha change. And I could see that all of this past trauma that I had experienced, all of this shadow aspect, this suppression that I had grown up with, and had, society had given me, my parents had given me, my own beliefs had developed in me type things, I was pushing onto him. And so we learned a couple things. First, we decided to take time and play with Elisha, doing what he wanted to do. We'd learned from this other wonderful woman. Maybe I'll put a link to her program in the description. But she said, if there's nothing you get out of this course, we bought a course on how to be better parents. This was maybe even almost a year ago. And she said, if there's nothing you get out of this course but this one thing, this is the thing you want to remember. Spend genuine quality time with your kids, doing what they want to do. And that was huge. I wasn't doing that. In passing by, we'd pretend to beat each other up, and then I would go. I'd come back downstairs to work, or I'd go drive in my car and go to work where I used to work. I used to work at a Boys and Girls Club. And so we never really played much. And when I get home from work, because I was playing with kids all day, we have programs and stuff, but it's draining because kids take a lot of energy and they're full of a lot of energy. And so I didn't want to come home and play with him because I was tired. I'd been just played with 20 kids. And so we turned that around. We started playing with him more, doing what he wants to do. So yes, that means jumping on the tramp, figuring out that, man, I sit around so much, I'm out of shape. Playing the tickle monster, playing Legos, doing those things that he wants to do. That has been a huge help to helping him feel loved, helping us create that environment for him to know that he's safe and that he can express himself. We've also done this for his sadness, for crying. We started telling him, hey, it's okay to cry. Like, It's okay to cry. When we feel that he's getting frustrated, but like heartbroken, frustrated, and he wants to cry, we say, it's okay to cry. Go ahead and cry. Like, just a prompt like that. We're not forcing him to cry. We're not, you know, and we're definitely not forcing him to stop. We're not suppressing him to stop. So not letting him cry. Go ahead and cry if you want. And he cries. He breaks down and cries because we've started creating that environment that he's comfortable and he's safe in, that he's allowed to cry and express his emotions in, right? He's done that. One thing that JC has done, and she is brilliant. She's so brilliant. I hope you take this idea. She has built what the Montessori schooling calls a peace corner. She used to be a teacher there, but she's built one of those in our home. And I wasn't as familiar with the idea, so I'm so glad that she brought it. But a peace corner, essentially, it's a place, the way she built it, it's got a blanket, it's got multiple pillows and a couple stuffed animals. And it's a place where Elisha can go, or you know, any of our kids as they grow up, can go and think about their actions. Like, hey, we do have rules in this house. Like, we can't just let you hit your brother for no reason type deal. Like, we have rules, but instead of me spanking him or saying, put your nose on the wall, you know, it's, hey, you know, that's not acceptable. Would you like to put your nose on the wall? Or do you want to go to the peace corner and think about what you're doing? And he's not chosen the nose on the wall yet. He's always chosen the peace corner. And he goes and he sits and thinks, and he's allowed to stay there as long as he wants. He's not allowed to play with any of the other toys in his room or anything like that. It's built in his room. But he's allowed to go there and sit and think about his actions. And he's allowed to think about what we're sharing with him. And here's the other thing. For anger, you know, I'm a boy. I don't know how girls are growing up because I haven't been a girl, right? I've been a boy this life, right now, right? For my life is what I'm trying to say. I've been a boy all my life. And as a boy, getting angry, expressing that, putting that into like a fight, like not necessarily beating up your sibling, but like wrestling or taking it out on a punching bag or something like that. I used to punch wood and brick walls and like, you know, sometimes I'd hurt my knuckles and wrists and stuff, but that kind of made me feel good. The only problem was I was damaging property and stuff like that. And I remembered that growing up, so I thought, JC, let's buy him a punching bag. So we did. We bought him a punching bag, and we said, hey, it's okay to feel anger. It's okay to feel frustration. And when you feel frustrated, Elisha, take it out on this punching bag. Like that's what that's what we got it for. Take it out on this punching bag. And so a lot of times Elisha gets angry and frustrated or he like throws a tantrum or whatever when his friends or cousin have to leave, right? So one Sunday evening, his cousin and him were playing all day. It was nice. The evening came. Cousin and the family have to leave. And Elisha is just distraught, right? Habit, right? He's formed these habits and we kind of haven't helped him until just recently, but he's formed these habits, throw a tantrum. So he started getting into that, and his mom started to notice that, and she says, Elisha, do you want to take your frustration out on the punching bag? And what does he say? Yeah, that'd be a good idea. So he goes in there, punches it just a couple of times, and then all on his own, comes out, happy, so friendly the rest of the evening. Like, mind-blowing, just amazing. How amazing. Instead of suppressing his anger, we provided a space for him to express his anger and given him some options on how to do that, right? Maybe you don't want to do a punching bag. Maybe you want to write a letter and just get out all your hate and anger and frustration to this person, about a situation, what have you. Write a letter. Burn it up when you're done because it doesn't do any good showing that to anyone. It just causes more problems. But that's you expressing it. That's you getting it out and calling attention to it. That is an act of healing and allowing yourself the freedom to express. Sorry about that. My camera battery died. But we were talking about anger, expressing that anger. And, you know, if you don't want to use a punching bag, write it out on a piece of paper. Burn it up afterwards. Or draw a person out on a paper and attack the paper and get all that frustration out. That is what is important to do, is to allow yourself to express your feelings. We talked about in the last video, acknowledge your shadow, these aspects of your shadow that have been suppressed, hidden, or ignored, and then get in touch with your emotions, right? Get in touch with your emotions. I didn't realize that until I started going through the shadow work myself. And that's when I learned that, oh, I need to help Elisha do this because I've been suppressing it this whole time. And I shared that with my wife, and she went right along with it, like, oh, how brilliant, you know, and she's way smarter than me anyway, just like by 1,000,000%. And she's so patient with me, so patient with me. So this has really helped Elisha feel empowered. This has really helped Elisha to feel confident in himself. In fact, there was an issue. He's hanging out with a cousin. They were outside in the sandbox or something like that. Cousin gets mad, starts throwing things, threw the bucket into this pond. And my wife was kind of secretly spying on the kids, kind of just seeing what, like she just happened to go check on them. But they didn't know she was watching them. They didn't know an adult was around. And this cousin starts getting mad. Well, Elisha decides not to get mad all on his own because he has learned to govern himself, right? And he's not perfect, but he's starting to learn those aspects and those empowering principles that you can have in life. He's learning those things, right? And so he decides he's not going to get mad. Well, then the cousin gets mad because Elisha's not getting mad. So the cousin starts pushing Elisha around. And about 5 or 6 times of pushing Elisha around, Elisha punches his cousin back and then tells him, that's what you get for pushing me. And what was cool is he didn't keep beating up his cousin. He stopped. One punch, the cousin stopped. He stopped, stood his ground, told him why he hit him. You know, like, stop shoving me, man. This isn't cool. I mean, he didn't use that word. He's only 5 years old, or that language, because he's only 5. But that's what you get for shoving me. That's what he says. Amazing. Just mind-blowingly amazing. Just huge. At night, for bedtime, right? We have this bedtime that we've been putting him to bed at. So we decide to give Elisha more freedom, more choice. Try to not suppress him as much. We're trying to stay away from suppression, right? So we give him options. Elisha, you can stay awake. Excuse me. Elisha, you can go to bed because it's bedtime, or you can stay awake and hang out with us, Mom and Dad. But if you're hanging out with us, you've got to be quiet, like you're not here. Like you can't be playing around with stuff. You can't be talking to us because we've got to get some work done for tomorrow. And a lot of times JC and I like to talk about ideas and see how each other's day's been going and maybe what we want to do tomorrow, right? We're planning. And so he's kind of learning that, hey, it's not so fun to stay up with Mom and Dad because they just talk about grown-up stuff. But he's happy with staying awake because he didn't have to go to bed because we've enabled him, empowered him to make choices on his own. And even though he's learning that it's boring, he still wants to stay up with us. It's been a good thing. And we've really enjoyed it because no, he's not throwing tantrums anymore. He's not struggling anymore with us. We're not struggling with him. That power struggle has disappeared. Yes, we still have rules. We just give him more choices and help him to learn to govern himself. Help him to learn to be in touch with himself, to make that connection with himself, with his core self, so he can learn, so he can grow, so he can develop, so he can be confident in his own skin. That has been huge. So notice your shadow aspects that you have. Where have you been suppressed in life? What things are you hiding in your life or have been taught to hide, taught to be ashamed of, that are considered unacceptable to society or your parents or people you know? Like, where do you want to go in your life? What's holding you back? With your shadow, how can you acknowledge it and heal it? How can you get in touch with your emotions? How can you learn to set up boundaries for yourself, such as the example we gave in the previous video of learning to say no, right? That's setting up and building boundaries for yourself to take care of yourself. Learn to give yourself freedom. As you learn to do the principles that I'm sharing with you throughout this series, you will learn to build a better relationship with yourself. I have a few more videos that I want to make on addictions, on other ways to overcome the shadow, such as the belief breakthrough process, and how to heal yourself in different ways, how to empower yourself, get your power back again. All right, I've had my second noob problem. My camera memory's full, but I wanted to finish with this. This is on my iPhone. Hopefully the quality's not too much different. I know I don't have my mic hooked up and the camera's not so great, but I'm going to continue making this series of working on the shadow so that you can learn to heal your relationship with yourself. And after that, we'll talk about communication. We'll talk about other things needed in healing. We'll talk about, more into addiction, more into becoming one in your relationship, and things like that. But the first and most important thing you could do to improve your relationship is to fix your relationship with yourself. And as you fix your relationship with yourself, you will make your best relationships. All right, I will see you on our next episode. It's kind of weird to wave goodbye. It's weird. All right, love you guys.